Our panel members.
Yeah, no, I can always email you. Okay.
Look at this room.
Let's see. Oh,
Pretty good
we
turnout.
can
This is a topic. Lots of people love.
A little bit of Asian going
Okay, I'm gonna get started. Thanks for coming this morning to join the Ministry of Last Things presentation on transitions, and the topic today is moving. So I think there is a lot of interest in this topic. I'm going to introduce our panelists. You all may know Elizabeth Gordon, who is at my far right. She has lived in the Boulder area since 1978 and joined First Con in 1994. She has worked in senior services and senior housing since 1978. She made her own pre-retirement move 4 years ago. At that time, she moved from her single-family home in Boulder into new accessible condominiums in Louisville with several like-minded friends. There, she and other owners are continuing to enjoy and expand an informal co-housing community. Dustin Sugrillo is next. He's been selling real estate professionally in Boulder County for 17 years. He bought his first property at the age of 20, and his main focus in the real estate world is the responsible transfer of wealth. I asked Dustin if he thinks the Boulder real estate market has peaked, and he says he doesn't think so, but he thinks the national real estate market certainly has. Next, Janet Beardsley and Kurtz. Married couple. Janet moved to Boulder in 1974 and has lived here for 48 years. Carl moved to Boulder in 1987 and he's lived here for 35 years. And their most recent move was from Boulder to Longmont 1 year ago in July of 2021. And they moved because of the need to right size and the desire to age in place. And they joined First Con in 1991, 31 years ago. And last but not least is Marley Jakes, who is here. She and her husband Bill moved to Frederick from Cape Cod in 2007 and then moved to independent living in 2017. And they're at Sunrise in Broomfield. They have been at First Con since 2014. So the three questions I asked the panelists to consider: what common concerns do seniors have when considering a move? What emotional and practical pitfalls do seniors experience during the decision-making process? And what is the best way to deal with them? And what is the best approach to take when thinking about the financial implications of a move? So we'll start with Elizabeth.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I've mostly made some handouts with a lot of detailed information, and I'm just going to highlight those because we don't have a lot of time and it's a lot to digest. And I made 15 copies, and I know the people at home don't have them, but we'll email them to if you give me the emails for everybody that's online, we'll make sure everyone gets them. And if you share with somebody if you don't have them, because that's mostly what I'm going to do. So my role really today is to provide you information about the different types of senior living and care that exists, and also what are some examples of ones that are here locally. I've also in the handouts given you a list of things I think that are really important to ask yourself as you're thinking about or considering a move to senior living. So very big topic. So again, I'm just gonna highlight what's in these handouts, and at some point you'll all have them, even if you don't have them now. So the first one that's on the top is a table that looks like this, a 2-page table. What that does is summarize all the senior living options that are actually restricted to people either over a certain age or people who have care needs. Before I go through that table a little bit, I just want to say it's really important to note that there are a lot of other housing options that aren't legally restricted to older people that are good options, like where I live, for example, for newer single family homes or patio homes that have main floor masters, single floor homes, condominiums and apartment homes and things like co-housing. So not everything's on this table. So what's on here as you get to take a look at it at home, on the left First, I do want to apologize for the small size of the print. I tried looking.
At least you
I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how to reformat it to make the font larger, and it kept adjusting itself to fit on the page. Anyway, so if you get a digital version at home and enlarge it on the screen at home, you'll be able to read it better perhaps. So the left column lists all the different types of senior housing and care, starting from the most independent down to nursing homes on the bottom of that first page. In the middle columns, I've listed some examples of those types of housing that exist either in Boulder or Broomfield counties. Not all of them, and I've divided them into market rate and affordable. So, or some that at least have some level of affordability. And then in the far right column, I've listed some properties that are under development now that are either under construction or planned. The second page, which you'll look at is important because I've defined some terminology for some communities that have more than one type of more than one type of level of care. Usually they're just generically called continuing care communities, but there are important distinctions between different types of communities. And those I've kind of defined more on that second page. So again, I'll get you access to a larger print if you want that. So that's what's on there. Let's see. Then, and I also do, if you come back later, I have a few copies of lists that have actually every single age restricted or care property in either Broomfield or Boulder counties that we have in our database. So I've got that, a few copies of that later. So the second thing I want to look at is the second page I've given you says some considerations in decision making about housing change with aging or health. And again, I just want to highlight a few things on there, and that's like, well, what are the things you really need to think about? And under each of the categories, I've tried to list a few questions, to ask yourself. It's obviously not comprehensive, but hopefully kind of a starting point for what do I need to be thinking about? And sometimes you just think about cost, or you think about one or two things. But so timing, are you planning for later? Are you planning for now? Might a life situation require a change sooner? Location, where are the places you need to be able to go? What will you be able to get to family, to friends, to church, to your health providers, to medical care, to entertainment and your volunteer work? And costs, what are the real costs of staying in your current home versus different options? Obviously, the more where care is involved, the costs go up. Where it's just housing with no services, they're not. The really critical thing to look at if you're considering any type of housing with care is most people advertise, like in places, things like the Blue Book, which is a good starting place, but they publish the lowest price for the smallest unit with basically no services. So assisted living based prices in here basically include room and board and some activities. Every care, medication, everything is extra, and that can go up to $3,000 a month. So just looking down the columns and seeing who looks cheaper isn't necessarily a good plan, but it can be a good starting place, and have colorful advertising in there. So services, do you need services now? Are you thinking you might need services later, or it's a good bet we might need services later? Some people want to choose a place that has more services in case they need them later, and that's going to cost more now. Other people want to just pay less now and not have all those services available and move when they need them. So those are other considerations. How much space do you need for yourself in your own personal unit? What's kind of safety concerns do you have? Do you want a bedroom on the second floor so you can open your windows? Do you a lot of things to think about. And then privacy, independence, freedom. How strong is your need for privacy, independence, quiet? Because one consideration is, do you want to be socially active with other residents, or do you want to, or do you want to be more to yourself? And then another consideration is multi-unit buildings generally have some trade-offs from single-family homes, possible noise, less desirable neighbors. And then the last thing is it really important to think about how you live in your house now and what you still want to be able to do and need to be able to do in your own home when you move. So think about garages, pets, entertaining, overnight guests, a lot of things to think about. What can I still do? What do I still need to be able to do? So to end the overview with that, before I hand it off to Dustin, I just want to note that giving you a couple of other things. This little half-page sheet that I've given you lists some really good online resources that I would recommend that have a lot more information, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I'm Dustin, and I work with Remax of Boulder. Remax of Boulder has been around since 1977. And I came to Boulder 2 years later in 1979 from the Cosmos. I got here in 1979, Colorado. So I've been here since then. That was the year I was born, of course. And so, yeah, right. My father-in-law told me last time he was here, he said, you know, you're getting old when you think 1970 was just 20 years ago. And, so a little bit longer than that. But my family moved to Boulder County in 1989. I was 10 years old. And the realtor, Miriam Sinti, handed me the MLS book. And to be 10 years old, sit in the back seat and have all the information about what houses we were going to see was a special kind of power, I guess it was. And it got me interested in real estate. And like Nancy said, 10 years later, at the age of 20, I wanted to do something really smart so that 20 years in the future, I could say, yeah, that was a really good move. So I bought a house, and I learned a huge lesson about location. And then I guess 5 years after that, I got into buying and selling professionally and helping others do the same thing. I guess they all got tired of hearing me preach about everybody should own real estate. And so I got into it professionally. And I've been doing it for 17 years. That was 2005 that I got in it. And I have, for the whole time, I've watched as people have transitioned, and there's been an irresponsible transfer of wealth, and there's been a responsible transfer of wealth, and the differences that has on the heirs of the family. And so my goal has been to, have something, have a good life, and then also have something at the end to give my children. And how do I do that? And that, setting that up from a young age all the way to the end is my goal. And we'll see what happens. We still got a ways to go, but that's how I got here. The next part, I want to just answer some questions that people have. Everybody says, where are we at in the market? One of the questions Nancy says, do you think Remax or Boulder has peaked in terms of pricing? And the answer is no. We've been tracking home prices since 1979 in Boulder, and the graph goes up and to the right. And so we haven't actually seen in those years, 40 years, we haven't actually seen a downturn. Now we've seen some flat spots, right? So it comes up, flattens out, up, flattens out. And those flat spots are when the rest of the nation is experiencing turmoil and depreciation. We're actually just sort of gaining at a modest 3 to 5% growth. And so what does that mean for us? It means that Boulder is a safe place to be, not only Boulder City, but Boulder County in terms of real estate values. I actually have a stat here that Colorado is currently the 14th in the nation for home appreciation. Last year it was at 21.56%, which is phenomenal. Since 1991, homes in Colorado have appreciated 578%, which is up there in the nation. But today, this is September over September last year. And the problem that we have in the marketplace with real estate data is we a lot of times we report by quarter, and so much can happen inside a quarter that the information is outdated by the time we get it in terms of what's going on. So what we track at Remax of Boulder is every week what's happening in the marketplace. So as of Tuesday, there are 75% more available homes in the market compared to this time last year. So that's a huge uptick. 25% less homes sold this year compared to last year, and that's year to date. 30% less homes under contract right now than this time last year. So the question is the seller's market over? The answer is yes. Whether or not we're hearing about it officially, the data is showing us that yes, the seller's market is over. But that doesn't mean that all of a sudden we're just going to crash, right? Because remember that home values have just gone up and to the right. We're just going to flatten in Boulder and Boulder County. Right now, there's 700 single-family homes on the market. This time last year, there was 600 homes. There's 475 of those homes available, meaning they're not under contract right now. Last year at this time, there was 350. Versus 250 homes available at this time. So inventory is up. And of the 250 homes right now that are under contract, last year we had 350 homes under contract at this time. So all of these numbers you can see are showing us that the market is slowing. And the percentage of single family homes under contract is now back to the 2012 through 2019 levels. Real estate markets tend to go 10 years up and 10 years down. So a 20-year cycle as we look back. If we called 2008 the bottom, which was the beginning of the recession, then that means 2018 probably the top. And that's what we were seeing as we were going into 2019 and 2020. And then COVID happened and we went like this. And so now what we're doing is we're back to that point, that pre-COVID point, where then we can see a cycling down. It could take 10 years to reach the new bottom. According to history, we don't know what will actually happen, but that's just if we're using history to predict the future. 30 seconds left. Well, see what happens if we get talking about real estate. What's the most important thing I can tell you? I've got a lot more information. Happy to talk to anyone. The answer always in real estate is it depends. It depends on where you're at and where you want to go. It depends on how long you've been there and what the next move is. So it depends. Let's just have a conversation. I'm happy to serve in any capacity. The last thing I'll say is a realtor. We were just talking about Irene Schaefer is Pat, right? Janet's realtor. And I said, you got to have that relationship in place long before you want to move. We make money on a success fee, so we get paid when we're successful. Whereas my attorney gets paid as soon as he picks up the phone. Yeah, he gave me a discount this week at $330 an hour, which was discounted because he didn't do what he said he was going to do. Anyway, real estate agents get paid when they have a successful transaction, and all that time before is free. And if you really want, if you all have real estate agents in your lives right now, the best thing you could do is call them tomorrow. And just say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? I'm not selling my house, or maybe you are. I'm not selling my house. I just want to have a conversation with you, because the best decisions can be made in trust-based relationships and using the most information you can possibly have. And realtors love to give that information in hopes that one day we will be able to make that success fee. So with that, I'm in, and I appreciate your time. I'm happy to talk more. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Janet Beardsley, and this is my husband, Kurtz, and I'm here to tell you our story. So ours is a detailed story about how we did move from Boulder to Longmont. And Carl will add information as we go. And I want to reiterate, we had an absolutely wonderful realtor that I had worked with for years and years and years at the YWCA. And she just helped us tremendously with what we were doing. So we raised our family in a house in Meadow Glen and in a neighborhood where we lived for 25 years. But the house was 4,500 square feet, 3 stories. It was more vertical than it was horizontal. And there came a time when we knew we couldn't live there anymore. So 3 to 4 years ago, we made the rounds of all of the open houses for elder care facilities in Boulder County. They didn't work for us, at least the ones that we could afford just simply did not work for us. So we decided that we wanted to age in place. We wanted to find a house on 1 floor that would be ADA accessible. So what was the first thing we did? We turned to Elizabeth Borden. We had her over for coffee one morning on our deck, and we said, tell us everything you know. And I don't know, 3 hours later, she was still telling us everything she knew. And it was absolutely essential to how we moved forward. So I want to tell you that in our church, we have a wonderful resource with Elizabeth Borden. One of the first things she told us was to do a leisurely search. If you can possibly do it, don't do it quickly. Take a look at what you really want. So we spent 3 years, I want to say, looking at different places and going to different homes and different open houses. It became immediately clear that we could not afford to live in Boulder any longer with what we wanted, that we were going to have to expand our view of the world we live in beyond Boulder. So we came close to making offers in houses in Lafayette, Louisville, Erie, and Anthem Ranch, but nothing was just right. They were either too small, too large, too in need of renovation, or too much of a massive housing development for us. So we just simply couldn't find our Goldilocks house. But we had an incredibly patient realtor in Ireland, all right? And she showed us one place after, I would say close to 100 homes that she showed us in the course of this 3 year period. Okay? One day in Longmont, we were out visiting, we would go to open houses on Sundays. And one day we were out visiting in Longmont, and we were looking at a luxurious new home that was way out of our price range. And the realtor who was on site said, well, what are you looking for? And we told him. And he said, jump in the car and follow me. He took us to a lovely little established neighborhood in West Longmont, right down the hill from Sunset Golf Course and Sunset Pool, where the builder was just starting to build a small little development in there of 8 custom homes. We immediately liked the second new house that was under construction on a hill that had a view of the mountains. It had a roof, walls, windows, and interior studs, but no finish. We talked to the builder, who agreed to widen all the doorways to meet wheelchair standards and at no cost, and to finish construction with our design decisions at a regular cost. So we signed a contract in November 2021 with a completion project of June 2022. But the worst was yet to come, selling our house in Boulder and all the work you have to go through to fix up, paint, change, recarpet, refinish floors of a house that had been a family home with 2 children and 4 dogs for 25 years. That was a project unto itself that's worth another story at another time. But let me tell you, that created tears, frustration, lots of sleepless nights, but we did get through it. Now, our realtor suggested a stager to us. We met with the stager told us what to do, and our realtor said, you follow what the stager tells you to do. We did. So we got rid of furniture, we hid things, we rented a rental unit to get all of our extra stuff in a rental unit, and began the process of staging our home. Our realtor recommended an initial quiet sale, which is putting the word out to her network that the house would be coming on the market in March, and invite private showings. Within a week, we got an offer, $25,000 over our asking price, with a provision that we could live in our house rent-free for 3 months while our Longmont house was being finished. We accepted the offer without ever putting our house on the market. All that work that we went to, we didn't need to do it, but we didn't know it in the beginning. So we closed on June 29th, 2021, and we moved into our house July 1. And we have been there ever since. We did make some mistakes. We made lots of mistakes, actually. The first one was the whole issue of landscaping costs. One more minute. So I am going to go right down to what were the lessons that we learned, and Carl may want to add some things in here, because as we look back, we had to overcome a whole process to get to where we are today. Inertia, fear of something new, regret of leaving Boulder, that's real strong. Feeling like we're abandoning friendships in Boulder, and attachment to our family home with our children. We had to give all of that up. But once we overcame our fears, there was lots of excitement in finding this new adventure of building a new house and doing it together. It was fun.
House around. Janet's covered it.
That's okay. Well, Bill and I spent about a year researching, reading, thinking about, did we want to age in place? Did we want to move? And one day I just came home and said, you know what? I love to bake, but I'm sick of cooking. And so that in some ways determined that maybe we should get more serious about this. At our next annual physical, we asked our doctor, what did he think about what we might choose to do? And he said, whatever you do it while you're still able to be active, to do the things you want to do, rather than wait for that time when you're going to need extra care. So we kept that in mind. And Bill, being a musician, he has played at a number of the places on your list, your wonderful list. So we already had a heads up, because he sort of had some feelings about various independent living that we were looking at. So we checked with our financial advisor as to, is this going to be possible? And she ruled out buy-in places. So we did not look really there. So then we did some serious visitation in 8 to 10 places that were in the area, some where he had played, some that were new to us. And we began to sort things out in our head as what's too important to think about. And location, location, location. It was important to us, since we had lived in Frederick, and our son lived in Louisville, and it was a long ways to get back and forth. Until the fire, our son was 9 minutes away from us, and he is going to rebuild, so I'm comfortable about that. And I've talked to my friends who don't have close relatives in this town, and they feel so alone on holidays, and we don't. And that I hadn't considered that, but that was important. That became important. Also, we're in walking distance of toothpaste and toilet paper and all those things that you don't want to go on a long mission someplace in order to buy, because you're still going to need them almost if everything else is furnished. So if you picked out a space in a spot that looks like the right location for you, what questions should you ask while you're visiting? Well, of course, financial questions. Be prepared for an annual raise if you're renting, and special assessments that have popped up after COVID, and upfront costs. Number two, that's so important to Bill and me, are what activities are provided. Where we live, we get a monthly activities sheet that has everything from every game that is organized game that is played, every movie that is shown in the theater, every outing to restaurants, shopping, trips to the mountains, go gambling, whatever your so. After you looked at the activity list and you think you're going to enjoy those, and what services does an independent living offer you? Well, we have a woman who comes in and cleans the apartment weekly. Maintenance is there, so if the dishwasher breaks down, you're not waiting and wondering when they're going to come. You put in a work order, and within a reasonable time, someone come and fix it. What kind of amenities? They've mentioned, what is your apartment going to be like? How much room do you need? Places can have 2-bedroom, they can have 1-bedroom, they can have 1-bedroom with a den. We're lucky in the place we live that every place has, an independent living either has a balcony or a patio. And that's lovely. And the warm weather, especially if you're on the north side, you can eat your breakfast out there if you want. Or that's special to us. And almost everybody decorates at Christmas and puts flowers out in the summer, and it's very nice. Washers and dryers are in your apartment. You don't have to go down the hall or share it with a sign up. And what are the parking plans if you're still bringing a car? We have underground parking, which is very nice. Took the 11-year-old Subaru in for an oil change the other day, and they said, gee, this finish looks pretty good. Well, it's air conditioned in the summer and it's heated in the winter. It's very well. We have a beautiful courtyard that has rabbits and squirrels that keep us entertained. And people are allowed small dogs. So, not big ones. Also ask about the meal plans, what's included. It's different at almost every place. Some places I went had a menu with prices. Other places have standard 3 meals a day. Our particular place has, goes by a point system. You get so many points a month. You don't use them all, you carry them over to the next month. And before COVID, we could have friends and family come in and eat. Now that those restrictions are now covered by whatever the county says. So what we did, we called our realtor, we called the ladies who ran the garage sale. Thank you.
Before I open this to questions, I want to remind you all that we're going to have an open house after church at about 11:45, and it'll be in this room and the Heritage Room. Louisa will be there with all of the Ministry of Last Things, end of life paperwork, checklists and so forth. We have a lot of handouts that I've laid out on the table in there if you're not able to come back at 11:40. And now I'll open it up to questions.
I want to hear what you want to add.
I know Janet and I
We did that.
did this together, and
Yeah.
she was the mouthpiece. I guess one other minor mistake I would add was, and it was over the lifetime of the house that we had lived in, was we had a pretty substantial capital gain according to Dustin's statistics. And I had reasonably good records of the improvements that we had made. But they could have been a lot better, and we didn't end up with a huge capital gain. We, as a couple, you get a $500,000 exemption from it, and we had another $300,000 in capital gains, and I was able to document 250,000. I wish I could. I'm
Good
sure
job.
I've done 300,000.
Right.
That's kind of a footnote.
Sue, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is for Dustin. I'm a recent widow, so all this is gonna fall on me. Had a house for 46 years in Devil's Thumb, rather ramshackle for that area, I dare say. So how do I go about looking for a realtor? How do I know a good one from a bad one?
Yeah,
Call
for sure.
Dustin.
Call me.
Well, this is open-ended now.
Yeah, so the average realtor has been in the business 8 years. And that means the average realtor hasn't actually seen the market that we're going into. And so the market that we've been in, you know, you list it and 2 days later you have 15 offers and you've had 50 showings. And you take 250,000 over you're asking, and you know, you close in 30 days and that's it. But what we're entering into with rising inventory is you're going to look for somebody who has experience with being on the market longer, knowing what it is that makes a difference to sell a house. In your case, you know, being in the house 46 years, Devil's Thumb, you said it's a shack compared to what's there and what's coming there.
Yes.
A lot of times people will say, well, I want to make these improvements, just like Janet said, we've got to do this and we got to do the carpet, we got to do all the paint. And then somebody buys your house and tears it down and builds a new one, right? And goes, yeah. So being able to realistically understand what is it and look at it from all those angles and have the experience that's needed. And that really only happens over the course of time. And being in the business. Most agents are out of the business in 5 years. And it's just because they think it's, you know, pick your own schedule and make a bunch of money. And that's just not the case. You have to take it seriously. It is a profession. You have to be professional. And so that's one of the first things I would look for is how long have you been in my community and how long and what are you doing to serve the community?
Is there an agency or something that rates them?
You know, online, there's resources if you start to look, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you further about, you know, where to look for that. 95% of people go online first. 86% of people get a referral from a friend. And that's true for millennials, and that's true for
Baby boomers.
this age demographic. It's just, you know, you want to know that you can trust who you're working with, and the best thing to do is say, well, who did you use? And that's where I would start there, honestly. Yeah.
Just a very quick question, because I don't want to take a lot of time. We're from New Jersey. We have a place out here, a condo. My family, my brother's son is out here. They're going through a split. That's another issue. And I don't want to take a lot of time, but I want to just say, what is it like to move from a New Jersey, where we are, to here?
Wow. and give me a little bit more of the question. In terms
We
of-
own property in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We've been there for most of our adult life.
Yeah.
And we got a condo here.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of distance,
Yeah.
a lot of difference in terms of the community and who we live with. All of
Yeah.
our friends, or a lot of them, are there,
Yeah.
not here.
Mhm.
And it's what do we expect?
Would you live in the
Marley
condo?
get that.
Has an answer.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, we moved to Colorado from Cape Cod.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it was a haul, but we had a granddaughter. And we missed our friends. We visit them. Sometimes they visit us. We called, got in touch with a realtor who does so we couldn't see all the houses that she was gonna prepare for us.
Mhm.
But we did take time to come and look. And Colorado is a friendly place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And But it's a lot of work. You downsize because it's expensive to move all that stuff. Sometimes you can buy a new set of glasses cheaper than you can move it, 2,000 miles across the country. So, but it works. I would encourage you. I grew up in Rockland County, adjacent to New Jersey,
Right.
so this is my 6th state, so
Thank
I'm
you.
doing fine.
Thank you. Sorry for the time.
No, that's good.
You want to address you mentioned inertia and what helped you get going on the process?
Well, I just say,
Hold you.
just, we would go out to these open houses. That was something to do. We didn't require bringing in Irene Schaefer, our realtor. We just go look at things. And that would keep us going. We go to the open houses for the seniors, stepped care facilities. That would keep us going. We would talk about it. We would think about it. We would talk to other people who'd already done it. So we kept it at, maybe not at the total top of our mind, but it wasn't at the very back. But it was 3 years before, we finally found something we were ready to go for, okay? But it stayed in our minds.
That's a good answer. So, go ahead.
Well, in my case, I just had a specific goal in mind. I knew when my last kid, Emma, went away to college, I was like, I'm not staying, because I was single, in a 3,000 square foot house by myself. But of course, I've been watching people age and move for 40 years. So I kind of had that background, but so in my mind, it was like, when X happens, then I'm going to make this move. So so I knew when that was going to be. So I started, a long process of looking at where and different options over the years. And then finally, when we had that place, then it had a specific date, because it was going to be constructed, and then you got to back into, well, then when do I need to start getting the house ready? When, so sometimes it's a specific thing or date or time that's going to happen, or a life situation that then, because that's there, you got to move on it.
I would say when making any sort of change, we're either moving away from something we don't want, or we're moving towards something we do want. And when you can do one of those two things, it's okay. But when you start to think about moving away from something that you do want, and you don't know that you're going to want what you're moving towards, fear, anxiety. And especially, you've been somewhere for 26 or 46 years. I mean, this is what you know. These are your neighbors. These are your grocery store, all of these things. The only way to do it, I think, is exactly what Janet said. Take time and figure out, what is it that I do want, and where do I want to live, and go shopping in that area, and go to church in that area, or, so we got to rebuild. Like Dick was asking, what is it like to move to Colorado? Well, a lot of people are doing it, and but you got to have the community, right? We what do they say? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with someone else, go with a team. Everything. We're all in this room together because of power greater than ourselves, and we got to have that place where we can get to. We're moving towards something we want, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're moving away from something that we don't want.
I just had a question. You mentioned online searches, and Janet and Carl, you all certainly spent a great deal of time on foot doing this, but over this period of time, online has become, readily available. I want to ask you, Dustin, do you think it is too terrible to essentially rely on online searches? I'm just curious. What is the quality of information and data that the online search will give?
Yeah, for sure. So just know that any website online is trying to capture you and sell you to me. And when you have statistics that show the searches in this area aren't enough to sell ads, then you manipulate the information to capture the eyeballs, right? And so you might get something on Zillow and you say, well, this is the house I've been looking for. And you call the agent and they say, well, that's under contract. It's been under contract for 30 days. Well, oops, you call Zillow and they say, oh, we made this mistake. We'll get it corrected. And that's, you can YouTube how to perform heart surgery on YouTube.
Can I?
I don't know that you will do that.
I want to add to what you're saying, Justin. We found that we were able to eliminate houses we didn't want to see by looking online. We go, oh no, oh, I'm glad we didn't go there.
Yeah.
That wasn't worth it. But if we saw something we really liked, we didn't just stop at an online search. We then went and looked at it.
Yeah.
Easy to eliminate things.
And that's when you call Irene.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of both. And if online searching is something you have zero interest in, then, call your realtor first. They'll do it. I'll set it up.
They
We'll
will
look
do
at
it.
stuff. And the other thing that you just said was, this is a process of elimination. It's not a process of selection. When we go to the grocery store, we're actually in the process of selection. You pick out what you want and you pay for it and you leave. But in transitioning in real estate, I think you'll agree, it's a process of elimination. Take out everything you don't want and see what's left, and then go look at those places.
I'll just ask one other question. Google Maps is wonderful because the online ads don't show you who's next door, who's a block down the street. like the sewage
That's where-
plant.
Walk around.
Yeah, but it's like walking around. You get a 360 view, you can look at maps and see what is there. That's really important.
Right.
I want to give our Zoom people a chance. Does anybody on Zoom have a question? And if you do, please unmute. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, anybody else, and then we'll end.
So my big question is, maybe would be towards Justin, but the issue when you want to go into a care facility that has different things. One of the big ones here is Fraser Meadows in Boulder. It's also a place that to get in, you have to give them your house.
Yeah.
Basically. So with all the real estate values that we have today, that's a lot of money to fork over. And not only that, but it's very costly to try and get some refunds. So financially, for us anyway as well, it doesn't make financial sense to give them that much money. I mean, we're talking $600,000.
Yeah.
That you never see
It's
again.
up now, more like 800,000.
Yeah, okay, so it keeps going up.
A lot of zeros.
So just you're talking about, asset, looking at the assets and making that part of the decision that we have. The other one that we have as well is what is affordable. Any, from all of you, I guess, any comments on this?
Part of it's about affordability, but it's also about what really you want and what makes you feel comfortable and safe and be able to relax. So people that choose Fraser Meadows, for example, yes, you're taking, most or all of the money from your house and investing it in there, but that you never have to move again. That there's good care available when and if you need that. There vast amounts of amenities and services and a lot of good people live there, and work there. But that's not for everybody, and everyone doesn't want to spend that much money, and other people would rather get a nice house and if, like the Beardsley. I mean, everyone needs something different. And I think Fraser Meadows that kind of option works really well for a lot of people, but it obviously isn't for everybody. I didn't choose it, but a lot of great people did choose it.
Right, yeah.
My daughter
A lot of
works there.
people-
I do want to add, because I just applied to Fraser Meadows, but probably will not go there to tell them that, but I just need a backup. Your heirs get 50% of that investment when you die. So
If you pay $200,000.
I think there are different
They're different.
entrance fee
That's what they
options you
quoted
can
me.
pick,
Well, that's
so.
good to know that it varies.
So I
It
think we're
does.
gonna need to close, but let's give our panelists some. come back for the open house right after church. It'll be in here and in the heritage.
And if anyone didn't get the handouts, if you want to leave your email on a list, or if you want the digital version that you can read, actually, just make sure I have your email address.
And say digital. This is
Digital. Say any, I'll send the handouts.
Carol, that's a beautiful shirt. Really nice. Where'd you get that?
It's so very
Wow, wow. That's really good. Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah.